Today is April 15th, tax day. You watch the news, you know, it's like Black Friday, you know, the news is a slow day, that they're all outside post offices looking at the lines of people sending in their taxes. But MSNBC was showing Michelle Bachmann, you mentioned her, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, all talking about they want to eliminate the IRS.
Yeah.
How would you respond if that vote came up to on the floor of the Congress? In any order.
Sure. Go for it.
I'm one of those people who actually do acknowledge that we get our decent return for our taxes.
Amen.
And nothing was more apparent than that than when we shut the government down. And all of a sudden there wasn't anybody there to inspect our meat, our food. The court shut down. You know, we all think we're entitled to drive on a nice highway, but who's going to pay for that? Now, it would be lovely if Michelle Bachmann and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz would say, you know, one of the fixes that we could have would be all of these corporations that are offshoring their profits here and sticking them in Ireland to actually come pay their fair share, because we're paying for the military that is supporting their freedom and their ability to make all of that money. I believe that when you start charging people taxes, you have to be fair about it. And everybody has to have skin in the game. Now, you know, if I got started talking about income inequality, we would be here for a while. But the middle class hasn't gotten a raise in 30 years. 2009 to 2012, 99% of the net income growth went to 1% of the people. But the other way of looking at it is that the 99% that got the 1%, if they're not pissed off, they certainly should be. Because those are the people that are controlling this country and determining their own tax rates. And one way that we could make this a little bit more fair for the people in this room, the people of Orange County, would be to find a way to cut the taxes of the middle class a little bit, because a few years ago we did that during the meltdown, and it began to stimulate the economy. People had a little bit more money in their pocket, and certainly in this era of $4.50 a gallon gas, you know, the last thing that we need to do is to be talking about, you know, Ted Cruz's, I mean, it's silly to even justify it with a response, but I think everybody has to pay their fair share. I think that taxes are already high enough in California. They're very high. I gotta admit, state income taxes, property taxes, we are taxed quite a bit. We get a decent return, but the middle class really does need some help. And if we brought some of that money back from the big corps, you know, if they pay their fair share, I think we'd be in better shape.
I certainly agree. I think that if you were to take a look at a tax structure that was a Republican tax structure, it would be Dwight Eisenhower's tax structure in the 1950s. The country was doing better than it had been at any point in its history. The middle class was growing. There was a progressive taxation process, and it worked excessively well for everyone at the time, and could work excessively well again. The person I hold responsible, probably, and unfairly so maybe, is a guy named Lee Atwater. I don't know how many of you remember Lee Atwater, but Lee Atwater took on an American veteran who was a hero, and he did it at such a level after putting poisonous ideas like the ones that you were talking about into our society, and then he developed brain cancer. And he spent the rest of his life talking to people and apologizing for the damage he had done to his country, for creating the Republican talking points, for creating the reverberating little drum that keeps beating, saying things that aren't true. And I do think a lot of that started with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a union boss, a Democratic union boss. And when he got elected, and how he got elected, is he said things that Democratic union bosses say, while George Bush Sr. was busy doing the exact opposite behind him. And so the reality is, as an educator, I truly believe it's time that we educate the country, we educate the youth, not to listen to these Republican talking points, because they're very, very good at it. Roger Ailes goes to work, and he says, it's my 8:30 meeting, what can I make up today? And he gains tremendous joy from watching the little phrase he made up at 8:30 in the morning just reverberate around the American economy as if it was true. And it's nonsense. And so that, to me, is the biggest challenge we face. I think that the economy should be doing beautifully. Money didn't disappear. It's just been misplaced. And so what we need to do is reorganize the process, and it isn't about us reallocating wealth. The wealth that has been reallocated by Wall Street literally taking 25% of the wealth out of the pension funds and putting them in the pockets of the 1% in the last 30 years. Nothing like that has happened in history without creating a revolution. I love this country. I want evolution, not revolution. But if we keep up these policies, a guy named Rupert Murdoch believes in aristocracy. Well, ask the English how well that worked. And that's what he's replacing in owning Fox News. He's replacing American democracy with failed aristocracy. And we literally, I think, have to say enough. This is not our country. It's not the way we want it to go. And we need to re-educate people to turn off Fox News. The damage is enormous.
Did you talk to them at the information desk here? Oh, Fox News all the time.
Yeah, I do the same at my yacht club. Oh, Sue's here again, we have to turn off Fox News.
Yeah, but you ask them if they listen to Fox News, and oh no, I don't listen to it.
Yeah, no, I've just been poisoned by it.
Right.
Dave?
Well, how to add to more to what they had to say. When I look at our tax structure currently, and I mean, it's obviously ridiculous to say get rid of the IRS, and really radical thinking, I would say. I would almost call them, I would call them anarchists, actually. Mm-hmm. And why they aren't called that, which is an appropriate name, I really don't know. I think the tax structure during the Clinton presidency seemed to make sense, and that was during a time of great growth in our economy, and it's something that I would advocate for. Those at the top of the totem pole should be contributing more to our society instead of just taking the cream off and taking it off to depositing it in other countries, or just sticking it in investments where it does no good really for the rest of us. Really I mean, just to reiterate in a different way what has already been said, what it seems to me has happened is really the treasure of our country has been stolen by a small percentage of the population. And I think we need to talk about it being our treasure that's been stolen. And we need, it's the right thing for us to get it back, the rest of the population. And there are ways to restructure the tax structure to do that, and to change policies so that it's not so easy to do this looting of our